So welcome to the Node API team meeting for February 4th, 2022. We will follow our standard approach of looking at the issues we've tagged for milestone 11. Before we kick that off, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make? I guess maybe it's just a good opportunity to remind people call for papers is open for OpenJS World. And maybe we should even talk about that ourselves here once we get through the agenda. So if I forget to get back to that, remind me. Okay, so if there's nothing else to announce, I'm going to share screen here, make sure I get the right one. Okay, so, and is this the right list here? Milestones, milestone 11. Okay, so here we go. So I guess we're at the top of stale issues here. So let's take a quick look in there. No new stale issues. This one, I don't think we have anything new to discuss. I know Lejeune Decasse was maybe going to take a look, but he's off this week. Anything that people know that we should talk about on that one? Okay, if not, let's go to the next one, 874. This one, I think we basically closed on. We just need to update the PR, and I guess some of the new methods should also have constant. Was there? So okay, so Suzanne responded like object freeze and object steal. Were there any others that we thought should be added? And let's just see, is this based? So basically this has been it's ready to land. I guess I see you've approved, Gabriel. Was that a recent approval?
Yes. I approved last week during our meeting when we discussed that it was okay.
Okay, so you're good to go on this.
Yeah, I think object freeze and object seal could use constifying though.
Okay.
So I'm inclined to say yes, please constify those as well.
Okay, I can't think under our current thing that like the freeze and seal is basically happening in the JavaScript level, right? So.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we've answered that question. They'll probably add those two in, and then if we can just get like another review or two, we can get that landed. And then if people have time, we might take another look through if we think more things could be const or whatever, but I wouldn't hold that up on getting this landed.
Agreed.
Okay, that's a good. This one. Okay, so I think this one is back in the hands of the original reporter. Nothing for us to do on that front. This one, Jack, I know you'd taken another look and posted. Do you want to discuss that one a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I was talking to Lejeune Decasse about this backboard. So his idea was we should cherry pick the files in the like that PR onto the staging on v14.x. When I did that, I got a few compilation errors, as you can see here. And one of them is this low property from dictionary class. And after doing more digging, it looks like it was introduced by like another PR in V8 elsewhere, because like that original backboarding commit that we're trying to backport is quite ahead from the V8 in v14 staging. And like that looks like it depends on this Swiss name dictionary class, which have like a bunch of implementations that we don't have in v14 staging. So I'm just wondering if we want to backport the original commit, do we need to backport everything else as well? Or because that's a quite big change, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's how big does it end up? Like how many files, how many classes, and are they like changing other existing code or just adding code?
I think
Yeah.
from my previous experience backporting stuff, it's true that usually you need to backport you need to work your way up towards the new version of V8,
Right.
backporting all the things that touch what you want. And yes, if the V8 folks were not careful, or if they were just unable to create like a chain of orthogonal commits, then it may well end up being too big of a change to backport.
Okay.
And that's a call the release folks are going to have to make, right?
Right.
However, you can still provide them with the proposal. Here's the chain, and
Right.
they'll make the decision as to whether that touches too much or whether that is sufficiently self-contained to backport.
Okay.
So
cool.
yeah.
Right. I'll take another look.
And I guess but the backport's okay to 16 is where we're starting, right?
On 16?
Yeah.
Like that commit on, I haven't tested on 16, but like it looks like it's fixed in the 16 line.
Okay, so it's already
16
okay.
has the version. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think 12 is pretty much off the table, but 14.
Yeah, 12 we would.
Candidate.
Yeah, there'd be no chance. 14. There's a good chance it'll be like, it'll come down to like how strongly do we want to advocate port, but having the patch will help because
Yeah,
if you can look at that and say how big is this, how risky is it? It's going to be a big factor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, having a working solution to evaluate is very valuable.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Say Gabriel confirm based on past experience. We need to pull in dependent changes. I spell that right. All right. Okay. Likelihood. Okay. Anything else we should add to that one? Okay, if not, let's go back and look at the next one. Thanks, Jack, for digging into that.
Thank you.
And I think that was some point we might want to open a new issue, although it's not too bad yet. So that was that one. So I think we're through all of the stale issues. That's good. Tracking issue for modules. I don't see anything new since the last time. Oops.
Let's also look at our dependence when we look at
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea.
Those are new modules ported. So we're up to
right.
1,302 dependents.
Yeah, I don't know what it was the last time we looked, but this doesn't necessarily give us a timeline, does it?
No, it doesn't. Unlike the downloads, but at least we can mark it for ourselves, or we'll just remember if we look every week. Yeah, I mean, okay. New modules ported, notable ones we will mention, but there are many small ones that we will miss, right?
Yeah. So here, 1302 dependents. Fed 2022. We could do that periodically just to remind us, right? That's good. And yeah, I don't know what this up and down this, but I've seen some of it in other modules as well, but it still seems like we're tracking in the right direction. Looks like more use rather than less, so it's good.
I think that there are some native models that for example, node.js that is now is deprecated because they now use another kind of API, so they don't use the C API anymore.
Okay.
They created a new kind of API to use Node, the SAS on other runtime like Dart. So yeah, there are some native models that today are not using the C or C++ API. So maybe this could be the reason for this up and down. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Some modules that did use it are sort of less in use. But then there's other
I
things
think that
that-
non-SAS never translated in an API, but
Right.
yeah. If we have some kind of module that today had the same story, the
Right.
same, this could be one reason. And I know that there are some developers and companies that now are trying to use NAPI-RS to create the binding. They use this kind of wrapper. So
Right.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, if there are other intermediate packages that serve the same purpose as Node AddOnAPI. Like for example, you just said an API RS, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way to track the usage of those packages? Like, do they have an equivalent page to this NPM page? I wonder. Then that would give us sort of a cumulative view of everybody who uses Node AddOnAPI and everybody who uses an API RS. It's true that I mean, you know best, I think, Nicola, about language bindings for Node API, because you did Go, I think, right? And you also looked at Rust and so forth. Yeah, I don't know if this would be here, right?
There are also of binding. Something that already exists in the Node ecosystem, and there are other bindings that are not tracked in NPM because they simply use NAPI-RS from Rust. So they essentially download NAPI-RS from Cargo, that is the package manager for Rust, build the native add-on, and then they publish to NPM. So I need to study a way to track this essentially. For example, Parcel uses NAPI-RS internally, but I don't know if the exact name today of I think that is NAPI, not NAPI.
Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of like just looking in crates. There's a bunch of things that say NAPI.
And it's all it's this is the
oh, looks like an API RS got renamed.
Because
this seems to be the active version.
It's used internally in Parcel, in SW R that is a TypeScript compiler, if I will remember, and yeah, has a good track for now. Yeah. So yeah, we missed all these, but in our statistics.
Right.
But yeah, maybe we can start to add, yeah, and on this issue, start to track all these statistics. It could be interesting.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, because maybe yeah, to understand the interest of other developers or company implementing native add-on. So essentially, yeah, an API is CPI and opened the node add-on implementation to any kind of programming language.
Would it make sense if we haven't already to drop a link in our README MD to this NAPI package in crates.io? So if folks are writing Rust, then they get sent there.
Yeah, in node.js we have a reference to NAPI-RS. In other bindings, I think there is a section.
So then we need to change that to NAPI because it seems NAPI-RS is now deprecated in favor of NAPI, right? So that
Right.
we link to the right thing.
This link the website. So this is right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. We're done.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. If anybody has time to think about how to capture some of those other ones, it'd be interesting.
Okay. I can do this periodically. Yeah, to see what happens.
Sounds good.
For what it's worth, the NAPI page on crates.io has like a recent download count, and that's like in the 250,000s, I think, or something like that, or 25,000s. But the point is that it's not as good as a timeline from what's its face, from NPM, but it is what it is. Where was it again? Oh, you need to go to the search page, I think.
Which page on what?
So if you search for NAPI, the first entry is NAPI version 2.0.3, and it says all-time downloads 604,000 and recent downloads 250,000. Now, what they mean by recent is unclear to me, but it's at least presumably fresher than all time.
Yeah, I think there's this graph down at the bottom for the last 90 days.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's good.
What I don't know is if this is cumulative. Like, cause it seems like recently there's several versions that are getting downloaded.
Yeah, because what I know is that with the new release, the release number 2, they shipped the new API, the synchronous API. So yeah, I think that there are a lot of and some bugs. So yeah, I think that it's This package it started to be used recently. It has a long story. If I will remember, all the work started 2 years ago, about 2 years ago. But then this creator moved to another people that pushed all to be what this creator is today. It's about 6 months that I can see some tracking, some interesting news on Twitter. So yeah, if you search, for example, on Twitter, an API, you can find some news about NAPI-RS, for example.
Or I guess there was like this article here was the
not here, but yeah. Brooklyn is the creator. So but if you go on search, search bar or on Twitter, you can just pass an API and
I mean
see.
here, okay.
Yeah, and see what you can get.
For what it's worth, I think even though
and dash API or node.js. Yeah.
So I think for what it's worth, the graph, even though it's fragmented by version, I think it gives us an overall idea of where an API RS downloads are at roughly, right? So we're used to seeing the NPM
go on
it's not
latest.
bad to have it.
Yeah, there is a Zig. It is Rabbit Zig is a new binding. It's very recent.
Okay, so yeah, if we track that info too, that sounds interesting if there's significant usage in other places, but seems to be percolating along. The next one is drive towards full coverage. So I know, Jack, is there anything you want to update on that front?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to look at this, but actually I was thinking, I know we have that OpenJS, like the Slack channel, and there was like the Node.js mentorship channel. There's quite a bit of people in there. I was wondering if I can like maybe ask if any of them wants to take on it the task, and I'll be happy to like give them some help or pointers to get started. I'm not sure if that's something we can look into.
I think that's a great idea. Like, if you have some cycles willing to do that, then making that offer, those are two good places to do it.
Okay, awesome.
I think that you could post the blog post that you wrote.
Yep.
And and say, for example, okay, you can start from here to see how to contribute to write the unit test.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, like
okay.
Okay, that sounds good on that one. The next one, enable debug testing. That I haven't done anything to progress, so I don't have any update, but still worthwhile, so I'll leave it on there. Burning down the list of module owners. So actually, that issue we can probably clean up. But anyway, we'll just go over and look at AddOnAPI, see if there's any issues or PRs that people want to call out. Let's just take a quick look. I think this one we'd asked for a few changes. This one.
Oh, okay.
There were a few comments here. So add non-constructor to allow customization of object behavior.
It's to avoid the usage of new. Is right.
So basically, this is non-constructor like a C++ keyword or something, or?
I think that today we have only a way to create object wrap. It's a JavaScript object that is built using the new keyword. So we, for example, in JavaScript create new add-on, for example, and I think that this PR is to avoid the new in JavaScript, if I well understood.
Right.
Why? What is wrong with creating a JavaScript object via new?
I think that I don't know.
Without new. Oh, I see.
Okay, without new. Yeah, without new.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay, I see. So that's more like modern JavaScripty.
But why is it better to have? Yeah, why is it better to have another different method?
Yeah, we could just add a condition into the constructor.
And I just wonder about like the non-constructor name. Is that something people have seen somewhere?
I think, yeah, okay. I think this person is trying to implement the convention in JavaScript of constructing an object by just calling the constructor, or versus constructing an object by calling new and then the constructor. And I think the solution seeks to reinforce the behavior where you say new and then the constructor, but we can do that without introducing a new method. But let me just double check that.
But help me understand again, like, why would you want to create it without running the constructor?
The main reason is that when you port old add-on, you could avoid to rewrite these in JavaScript, no? Because the old if V8 or NaN allow you to use these kind of API, and you cannot so in this case you only need to write the native part instead, and keep the JavaScript like the
same.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, in JavaScript there used to be this convention where you have a function, right?
Yeah.
And the function may or may not be a constructor, right? And if you call the function intending to construct a new object, inside the function you would have something like if not this instance of the function, then return new function. Otherwise, construct the object. And so it used to be possible to construct an object by calling the constructor without the keyword new, and then that fell out of favor because we have things like classes now, and so classes should be used with the keyword new to instantiate the new to create the new instance of the class. And so and I think if I remember correctly, with classes you cannot call the constructor without the keyword new. And so this would this would make people who use old JavaScript, basically update the syntax to the new syntax, if that JavaScript also happens to be calling into native object constructors. So this throwing the error is not a bad idea, but I think we can do that without having to have a new method, and that's what I'm about to check, or I'm in the process of checking.
Right. So today we just say, no, you can't do this, but you could later.
Yeah. Okay, right. This is the wrong place.
So basically, you can create the C object, but not run the C constructor, and then you would be responsible for calling a method to do that yourself.
So I think I know what is going on. Okay, so the way we've done object wrap is a constructor to the object wrap class is the constructor to the JavaScript object, and in there we call where do we call this? So yeah, we do an NAPI wrap in there. Oh, right, because the okay, so the user's constructor is a subclass of our constructor, so it gets chained up, I think. And when our constructor executes, it calls NAPI wrap. And so I think the idea here is that our constructor should throw if it's not an invocation via new, right? But it's not a good idea to throw in a constructor, and so therefore we should have a method that does the throwing, so that it's not a constructor. I think that's the reasoning behind this PR.
But it says something about being able to customize it as well.
Yeah, customize in the sense that do you wish your subclass of object wrap to allow construction via direct call, or do you wish to restrict it to only allow construction via the new keyword? I think that's the customization involved here.
Right, because what we have today basically says
you can do both.
You can actually do both.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was like today you couldn't. You only could use new.
No, that's, yeah. I don't think that's how we do it.
Because this would be a breaking change then, if it's preventing it from happening.
Well, it depends on. Well, I mean, but if it's customizable, right? So, oh, wait a second.
So the way I see this change.
No, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. We have not this construct. Yeah, currently we are forced to use new. Yeah.
Yeah. Today, the only way is to use new.
Okay. Sorry, then I had this backwards. Then this basically allows old JavaScript to continue to execute without forcing changes on the maintainers of the old JavaScript. Sorry, it's exactly backwards from what I had in mind.
Right, and in that context, I could see it's like, okay, if you've got existing code and you're making a backport or you're porting to Node API, this makes it easier to do that, I think, right?
Yeah, because you don't have to touch the JavaScript right away. Gives you time.
And is this non-constructor, like, is that a typical naming for that? Or is that something that's just been created in this?
Yeah, I don't think it's typical.
It's interesting in test codes he uses term factory. I wonder if factory term will be better. I don't know. It's can we look on maybe like a MDN reference about how, for example, if you have date object can be called with new and without new. What terms they use if it's called without new?
Okay, let's do that. Date object
In MDN.
Is there like a create instance?
It was somewhere above, like as I was saying, it can be called as a function or can be called as a new.
So is there something I should search on here or?
Oh,
Yeah, here we go. No, just go to date bracket. There, a little higher up, I think there's a date bracket. See, when called as a function, returns a string representation of the current date and time exactly as new date toString does. So when the method is referred to as a constructor, even though it doesn't construct anything. So if you say new date, then you get a date object. If you just say date, you get a string.
The term they use are calling as a construct as function, like with the terms they use. They don't call it non-constructor.
Yeah, okay, so maybe as function. Yeah, so rename non-constructor to as function.
Yeah.
Or is there some way to just make date work? Like, you know, or in our case, it would be, you know, I guess
So,
maybe not to pass across, but it effectively would be like you, instead of saying new, you say object brackets, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, I think the idea is that with this change, the maintainer of the add-on gets to decide what to do if it's called as a function, right? And then they can still return a new instance if they so wish, or they can, you know, do something else like the way date does, or they can, you know, well, that's basically the choices, because the third one is to refuse. We already have that.
right. So
Right,
the change by default throws exactly the same error as before, but it gives opportunity with type T to implement this method differently.
Yeah.
Right. So I just wonder, like, is there a way where it doesn't need to be like, it would just be like it's an operator versus another method?
Yeah. I just realized if it is called as a function. Oh, I see. So the default implementation of non-constructor. Okay. So this is sort of what is that called? It's like an overridable thing, right? So the default implementation of non-constructor does whatever object wrap does today, right?
Right.
But if this method is overridden, then you can do something else.
Right.
In that method. Okay, I get it now.
But it's kind of
okay.
like, so I could see that being called non-constructor but the actually being set on the method seems odd, right?
What do you mean set on the method?
Well, like here it's basically set as an export, right?
This is just for unit tests. Like
yeah, this is for unit testing.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. That's the unit test. Okay, so it's not actually exposing. Okay, so maybe the method is, if that's just an internal name, it's not as big a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it is a big deal in the sense that this is public API, because the extension point that this introduces, the name of the extension point is non-constructor.
Right.
So we may bike shed on the name of the extension point, but I think the concept of providing an extension point to handle this kind of situation is valid.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually great.
Because what would happen
Yeah.
today? So I guess today you could call it as a function, but the wrong thing would happen. Is that right?
It would throw. It would throw, saying that class constructors cannot be invoked without new.
But not without this change. Like what? Without this change, you could call it, but it would.
No. Without this change, look at what it removes on line 4467. Right? It like right now what we have is if not is construct called, then an API throw type error. Class constructors cannot be invoked without new. So
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
calls it.
Okay. So yeah. So right. We already throw an error that says no, you're not allowed to do this. Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas now it calls the extension point, and the default implementation of the extension point throws the error.
Okay.
So the
it.
add-on maintainer has an opportunity to override that behavior.
Right.
I'm curious about why we didn't do this before. Is because maybe it's not possible or it's not easy to do the same thing with other JavaScript engine?
No, I don't think this is. I don't think this is in any way engine specific, right?
Okay.
Because in core, right,
Yeah.
where you say an API defined class, in core it asks for a function pointer for the constructor, right? And inside the implementation of that function pointer, you can make this determination without using node.js, right? So
Yeah.
The JavaScript engine should fundamentally support the concept of calling with the new keyword versus calling without the new keyword, because we have a way of checking with existing Node API whether this is a construct call or not. And so presumably, and we've had this since I think this was version 3, I think, of the API. So it's like the earliest stable version of the API that we've had this. So presumably other engines have either added this behavior or they've always had it, because the JavaScript spec says that the constructor can be called with or without the new keyword.
Right. And I guess it's like, is it that the existing code we have would not work if it's not a constructor?
Well, I mean, it would always throw right now. So
I know, but if we took out that throwing of the check,
yeah,
like I'm trying to understand why do we have that check in the first place?
I think the difference is that basically, if you don't have this check, then you have to check what your this value is, right? And if your this value is an instance of the object wrap subclass, then you have an object that JavaScript has created for you, and now you have to flesh it out to be an instance of this object wrap class. But if the this value is something else, then you don't. Then you have to create a new object. So you have to call like an API new instance for you to correctly behave like a constructor. So you basically be mirroring the old JavaScript behavior of, if not this instance of whatever the name of the constructor, then return new whatever the name of the constructor, else flesh out this. And old JavaScript will do that, because before the introduction of the class keyword, that was the only way to create classes in JavaScript. And so what I suspect is what happened was that an API has percolated down to some old JavaScript projects where things get called without the constructor, and they ran into this problem where it gets called without the constructor, and lo and behold, it throws. Whereas before with, say, nan, it didn't throw. So
and they've got the code in nan to be able to do the right thing. They just want to place
yes,
to put it.
That's right. Yeah. So basically, in retrospect, I think we expressed an opinion here that we do not allow calls without the new keyword, and so now the opinion remains expressed. However, we have an extension point where people can have a different opinion.
Yeah, that sounds okay. So let's see what's one.
Yeah. Well, it's the issue. Okay, this is exactly right. Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I think, yeah, I don't see any harm, to be honest, unless we really thought, no, we don't want people doing this.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, people have to make an effort to get this behavior. So presumably it works for most people, right?
Right.
And, I mean, philosophically, we could argue that we should not encourage old JavaScript to stick around. But I don't know if we need to necessarily be harsh about that.
I'm more on the, yeah, I don't think that's our role, right?
Yeah.
Like if we thought it was, there's really a reason why it's bad, okay, but I think otherwise it's more like we didn't do it probably because we didn't think too many people would need it, but if it's easier for people to port existing code, then why not?
I'm thinking this, what would this being sort of a language decision, might it make sense to ask like a wider ring of people for their opinions? Like I'm thinking like maybe ask the TSC, because they are more, they may have a broader perspective on where JavaScript is headed and what the possible magnitude of use cases is where the new keyword is undesired. And then maybe get sort of a wider perspective on this so that we can make a better informed decision.
But I'm just wondering, like, are we worried about adding this?
No, I don't think so.
Right? Like if it was a big change or intrusive, like, so that say the TSC says, well, most new people should use new.
Yeah.
We still have one person saying, hey, wait a sec, I've got some existing code.
Yeah, it breaks me. Yeah, true.
It breaks me, and just sort of risk reward and value.
Okay, yeah, you're right. No. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Because it doesn't change default behavior, right? So default behavior is still to throw on non-new. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay.
So I like our only downside is we now have an extra method that we can't change the name of in the future, right? And
yeah.
My question will be, what do we have any policy about documenting such extension points or something? How does it work today?
Well, that's a good point. This PR should update the documentation. Jump to binding.chip. Yeah, no, it doesn't update the documentation. So one thing we can ask of the PR author is to also update the object wrap documentation.
Right. It seems like we agreed giving developers the option makes sense. We would like the PR to include updating the documentation as well. And are we okay with that non-constructor name, or is?
I personally favor as function because of MDN, or yeah, as function is probably best. If nobody has an objection to that.
Oh, as function like this?
Yeah.
And is there said there's an MBM, like if I search?
Yeah, because well, I mean, it's a what is that called, an object in a sentence where you say called as a function called how. Yeah, I guess that would be the object of the sentence.
Okay, but I was just wondering if there's something we can point to. So it's not necessarily that it's in MDN or anything, but just that it calling as function is.
I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense semantically because you're treating the constructor as a function.
Maybe,
Which
what about like
JavaScript
as function call? As function call. What do you think?
Yeah. That was a very close second in my mind. I didn't mention it, but you did. So yes, I'm
Like
also
that.
good with that. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
like create as function call or?
No, it's treat the constructor as a function call.
Constructor as function call?
Oh, that's getting
But I guess
long.
this is a method on the constructor, right?
No. This is a method on the object rep class,
Right?
And the constructor calls this method if it detects that this is not, that the new keyword was not used. So
Right, because other like create instance would be something that I've probably seen elsewhere where you, like somebody mentioned the factory, right? Like
Yeah, so it could be as constructor, because essentially you call a function on an object, treat it like the constructor, or maybe
yeah, if you say as constructor, we already have a constructor. So now we have a constructor and we have an as constructor. Like we have like class name : class name, and then we have class name : as constructor.
But actually create instance is like, here's the method that you actually use to create the instance. And by default, like if it actually,
yeah,
I guess it's only got a subset of the code. No. Like here,
yeah.
Because we've got in there, so that's non-constructor.
I think create instance may be confused with the constructor, because the constructor also creates an instance, right?
But I was almost wondering, like, because this is the when the constructor is called, right?
Well, yeah, this is but this is just our implementation, right? From the add-on maintainer's perspective, the constructor of the subclass to object wrap that they have created is the constructor of the JavaScript object, right?
I'm wondering, like, if this whole thing was moved into, like, this is the part that creates an instance, right? Like, if that was all moved into this create instance method.
Oh, no. It's important that it be done in the constructor, because if the new keyword was used, then a new JavaScript object would not have to be created. So basically you see that wait a second, something. Oh yeah, return. Okay, so look at the change that was made. It says return details : wrap callback t : non-constructor, right? So this returns a value, right? Whereas if this is a construct callback, so if the new keyword was used, then you don't need to then you return the value that is the this value. Whereas if the keyword was not used, then you return a completely new value that the C++ implementation created itself. So it behaves differently.
But all that could be in this, like if it was a create instance method, this whole thing could be in there and you could still do those two different paths, right?
You mean the default implementation?
Right, like the create instance would basically move the default implementation that is like in this construct callback wrapper, it would call create instance.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then that create instance would actually be responsible for handling is, well, was this called from the constructor or was this called without the constructor?
Yes, that could be done. And the default implementation.
And it would be flexible, because then you could now override the default the implementation if it is called in the constructor, if that made sense.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Can you please scroll down just a little tiny bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so return
And I guess that adds an indirection.
Yeah. I think it's cleaner this way because then the case where the new keyword was used is handled in the constructor, which makes it identical to what JavaScript does, and so like logically it's more consistent. And the case where the new keyword was not used is deferred to this hook, and that's it. So yes, we could move it. I mean, there's nothing preventing us from doing it, but logically, I think it's best if we kept the two separate, and then the method that deals with what happens if the new keyword was not used is elsewhere than the method that doesn't. That's all. But there's no technical reason not to move it to the new hook.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. I just thought that then like the create instance method would actually make some sense. But
yeah, see, that's why I don't like create instance, because create instance how, right? The constructor creates instance the quote unquote right way, the new way, the modern way, right? And this new hook, whether we call it non-constructor, as function call create instance, or as constructor, creates objects the old-fashioned way.
Right, it would just let you, if it was a create instance, you could basically override how you create instance regardless. And the default implementation says, well, I'm only going to let you do it through new. And people could copy that and extend it.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because I have seen cases where like maybe you have 3 or 4 different constructors and they all call create instance after having filled in some parameters or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's, I'm just searching for a pattern I've seen. Non-constructor doesn't.
Oh, wait a minute. There's a problem. So it would have to chain up, right? Because so the user's implementation would have to chain up, right? They would have to call like object wrap bracket my class name : create instance, because otherwise we create nothing. Because we do like we do call the user's implementation, right? Or don't we? Wait a second. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, huh. What's that? How do we do this?
If you look on the kind of test code effectively just calls the same constructor, like JavaScript constructor. So technically, we effectively re-entering this method and going different paths. Right.
Yeah.
So in the end, say like get constructor for this specific.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. That's where the chaining is, right? The chaining exists because it's a constructor. Yeah. Okay, got it. Okay, so it calls the constructor and then does its thing. Okay, I got it now. Okay, I got the reason why we shouldn't move it. Okay, so look, open test object wrap CC and look on line 26. So not in the PR.
Not in the PR? Okay.
Yeah, not the PR, like our repo. So go to test, object wrap .cc.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Object wrap.
Yeah, way down by the O's. Yeah. Object wrap CC. Yep. Towards the middle of the screen, slightly above.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay. So now look at line 26. Okay. So, what? Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. 24. So you see class test : public NAPI object wrap test, right? Class test is a subclass of NAPI object wrap test. So C++ forces you to construct the superclass before constructing the subclass, right? If you omit, oh sorry, no, it was line 27. Sorry, my mistake. So you have test. The constructor for test is : NAPI object wrap test info, right? If you omit the : NAPI object wrap test info, your code will not compile because you have to construct a superclass before you construct a subclass, right? But with a regular method, nobody is forcing you to chain up. You may or may not chain up, right? With a constructor, you have no choice but to chain up. So if we move everything to a method that is not a constructor, then we may never get a chance to do the NAPI wrap because the add-on maintainer has chosen not to chain up. So we have to do NAPI wrap for things to work correctly. So therefore, the NAPI wrap call has to be in a constructor. It cannot be in the hook.
Right. Okay. So if we look at the code in the, so let's go back to
the PR.
Right. So this is, no, it's up above, right? Like here.
Yeah.
Like, you mean this code needs to be?
Let me see. Where do we call NAPI wrap? Yeah, where is that? Okay, let me check where we do that.
So the method we're looking at, it's basically being called by node.API, right? Like it's callback itself, and inside of this callback, we call a new for the class. For the
yeah, so we call. Let me see. So yeah, we call NAPI wrap inside the object wrap constructor, and so if we move that. Well, wait a minute. Where do we have this enforcement though? Because here's the constructor.
This callback will be called from the class definition itself. So we're providing effectively this callback.
Oh yeah, okay.
Then from JavaScript new, this callback will be called first, and after if you look inside of its callback code, at some point we're calling our native class new.
Yeah, okay. So this is before we even say, oh yeah, new T. Okay, I see. So this happens before we even call new T.
Yes.
Oh, good. That's great because we don't want to have. Okay, yeah. So this is the perfect way to do the hook because we don't want to do new T, right? Before we do this hook. Yes. Okay, now let me think about that. Okay. So yes, we could move it after all because if we do the new T inside create instance, then it is no. Yeah, I don't. So okay, so let's see. Okay, the default implementation does like a new T callback info, right? If we move this into if we move this into the hook, and from constructor callback wrapper we simply call the hook, then what's going to end up happening is instead of the object wrap T : the hook, it will execute subclass : the hook, right? And then if they, okay, so that's great because now they can choose, they can make this determination, is construct call yes or no, and if yes, then they have to chain up, right? And if no, then well, they could chain up either way if they don't want the override, but if they do want the override and it is a construct call, then they have to chain up, right? So basically, if they don't do anything, then they get this behavior, so we're safe there. But if they do want to construct, if they do want the non-construct behavior, and the new keyword was used, then they have to chain up. Okay, so if we move the code, as you said, Michael, then in the case where the new keyword was not used, Well, in the default case, if users don't change anything, it will work as expected, right? So it'll continue to work as it does today.
Yeah.
If they do choose to override, then if the new keyword was not used, now they have the opportunity to do something else. So that's good, right?
Yeah.
But if we move the implementation and the new keyword was used, now they cannot simply proceed as they wish. They have to chain up in order for the object to be constructed using new T callback info by our implementation.
Well, they've got a copy, like if we have a default implementation of create instance.
Yeah, they would have to chain up to it.
They've got to, whatever if they've overridden it, they've got to, I don't think they have to chain up to it, but they have to copy the code and put it in their implementation.
No, they don't have to copy the code, but they do have to chain up, right?
You're right. I guess they could call, you're right. They could call the default version.
Yeah, they could say, they could say object wrap, angle brackets, my class name, : create instance, but they would have to do that. Yes. Whereas with the implementation as it is now, they only have to do something if the new keyword was not used.
Right.
So I think this makes the add-on maintainers write less code because they only have to handle the case that they wish to handle, right? Whereas if we move the implementation, they would have to handle both cases themselves. We can no longer handle the case where the new keyword was used for them.
Yeah, it might be more flexible, but it would also, I guess, more error prone is what you're saying. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's better to leave it as is and just give them the hook.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And it's what we
just
call
gotta
it.
bite them. Yeah. Well, given this, I don't think we should call it create instance because it's create instance if new keyword was not used. Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful.
Create as function.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What do people think of that one?
Yeah, or create via function call. Yeah, I think create via function call. It's slightly more verbose, but I think that's about as clear as we can get via function call. Yeah. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, the point is actually we have a verb as a first word, right? Okay.
Yeah, which is good, right? Because it does create something, right? And then we also have function call that makes it clear that this is not a constructor.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, cool.
Everybody else.
Looks good to me.
Right. Push the button.
That was, yeah.
Okay. That was good, but we're long past our time. So I think unless there's something specific people think we need to deal with this week, maybe we can close out.
Yep, agreed.
May I ask you just, I submitted yesterday a couple of proposals inside of node.js node. If you guys can look next week, would be nice. So one of them we already kind of talked before we start recording about using features for versioning. And the second one is about this strong pointers and weak pointers.
Thanks for the heads up. I'll try and do that. Okay, well then, everybody, thanks for taking the time and for people on the live stream as well. Otherwise, see you in GitHub and next week.
Yep,
Thanks.
talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.